In this interview, I speak with Kyle Morck, and Kyle is vice president at Reynolds+Myers, which is a marketing company who specializes in a couple of things. I'm going to let you reveal what those two things are because this is kind of interesting.
Indeed. For those of us in the building industry, our context of thinking about products and services and design and engineering is always about the building industry, right? Kyle was at the show in Chicago, of course, appealing to architects. He's involved directly in the building industry. His company is also directly involved in the food industry. What? Like buildings and food. Those seem to me quite different. So what is interesting is that, how often have we considered that those involved in our industry and those involved in others, we're all still people, right? And communication has a lot to do with how business happens and representing supply side messaging to demand side users or retailers to consumers, right? We're all just people and we're trying to communicate in an effective way. So, Kyle's services include helping companies on the supply side primarily communicate their messaging to the demand side. Mm-hmm. Much of what we're all about, right? With Tect and Peopleverse, et cetera. So I was really intrigued by that. And that's background on his company. It's not so much what he addresses in this interview. So maybe we have him back to do a little compare and contrast and share some of the other stories around the food industry, because I think there are a lot of probably interesting areas of insight that could be gathered. But knowing that that's how his industry or his services, set up, when you listen to this interview, listen for things that might speak to that crossover.
And I think one of the things that building product manufacturers, sales reps, people on the supply side will get out of this interview, this episode with Kyle, is that he's really focusing on the shift from the supply side focus on the contractor end of the design process, where they actually sell the product to, and focusing on the value of the design professional earlier. And that, I think, is something that a lot of manufacturers struggle with and can get some insight out of this interview. In this episode, I welcome Kyle Morck, Vice President of Strategy at Reynolds+Myers.
Kyle, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Evan.
Yeah, so tell me about what you do. And it sounds like you're kind of in the middle of the supply and demand side, kind of like we are.
Yeah, so I am the vice president of a marketing agency called Reynolds+Myers, and one big focus for ours is working with building product manufacturers to really help them understand their audience and how to reach them, the best channels, all of those pieces. And really the focus is kind of trying to move past lead gen to what, how people actually buy the products and how they actually end up in a project.
So the supply side, the building product manufacturers have multiple audiences, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about design professionals. I'm an architect, right? So that's where I'm coming from. The early phases of the project is really important to build that relationship and tap that expertise because it influences where I go with design. And then there's the contractor side, right? Which is the ones who actually purchase the product. And so we feel like there's a big disconnect with building product manufacturers treating architects like they're contractors and selling to them. And instead of just adding the value where it's the most appropriate, instead of selling because we don't buy anything. We specify, we curate, we're the ones pushing the project in a certain direction and making sure that outcomes are based on getting the right thing into the project at the right time. So tell me about your experience in that side of it.
Yeah, because that's one of the biggest questions for the marketing departments, definitely at the building product manufacturers, is basically like, how important is the architect actually to this? Because they know about specification and all of that, but then
they see a lot of value at the end.
Yeah, you can get value engineered out of that, all of those pieces.
Swapped out, right.
What they're actually like seeing and able to do attribution for, things like that, is, the contractor sending in the quote request at the end of the process.
Right, I get it.
So that's where they kind of focus their time and energy a lot of the times. And what we really push for is, no, the architect really is that audience that you need to be selling to, because it's way harder to attribute to get the ROI on it, but that's where your sale is actually happening. And if you can do a good enough job selling it to the architect, who's then going to sell it to their client, and, you know, teach them about how useful it's going to be and beneficial for them, they're going to fight for that product throughout, you know, any value engineering, anything like that.
And it's better for the architect too.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm going to tweak your word, selling to, and say marketing to.
Yeah.
Because I need to be aware of the values, and I need to be aware of the technical aspects, and I need to be aware of the code implications and all of these things. And I'm not buying it, but if I specify it and I base my design on that information that is appropriately injected at the right time, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have to change it, if something gets substituted out, it almost always leads to me having to spend a lot more of my time that I actually can't bill for, because I've already spent that time designing it once.
Yeah.
If I get a product substitution late, it's on my dime now to, if I accept it, and it's not just a one-for-one, there's some tweak, and that ripples out into other products in the assemblies that I'm designing, that's just a huge waste for me.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So building that relationship, having those go-to experts early in the process is huge. And so I'm here to help you. How can I help you get this message to building product manufacturers? Because that's what we're trying to solve at Tect.
Yeah, so the big thing I've been working on is just trying to do a research project to really get this in a form that can make sense to the marketing departments at the building product manufacturers.
Is it a behavior shift? Is it a hard pill for them to swallow,
one
to
of the
shift?
biggest kind of issues, I think there's two things. One is the marketing departments get very isolated within an organization, and they're usually getting a lot of their information from the sales team.
Yeah.
And the sales team is going to be very pick up the phone relationship oriented, because that's their world, that's what they know. And that's really important once an architect knows about a product and has used that product, having that relationship. But on the product discovery side of it, you know, a lot of the architects we talk to, they want to kind of have as frictionless of an experience as possible to learn about the product, to get it into their project, all of those pieces. And that is something, so the bigger problem with that is that, you know, marketing departments are a budget line that's really seen as just being an expense. So there's a lot of pressure on marketing departments to try to prove ROI, prove attribution, all of those things.
Which is so hard.
Yeah, and the architect relationship, you can't do that and make that a friction-free experience for them. So you end up in a world of kind of wishful thinking of, like, you know, we hope that an architect will come on here and, you know, fill out a form to reach out to a sales rep and then get a call, and then we'll be able to say that was worth however X money to us, but that's just not how it works. So we're trying to help marketing departments really kind of understand the world that they're actually working with, understand the importance of building those brand relationships with architects and what that looks like on their website, on their marketing, all of those pieces, and then figure out how to kind of communicate that up to their leadership on, like, you know, this is the focus, this is the vision, this is how we're going to view this, you know, this is a 18-month time horizon, not a few month time horizon where we'll be able to say we got 1,000 leads coming in the door.
Yeah, and like marketing is getting yourself positioned in a mind of somebody who, and you don't know the timing of when it's going to be acted upon, right? But that's what marketing is, right? It's all about building the brand, building the awareness, understanding an alignment of values potentially, all of these things. There's so many other, there's carbon footprint, that, you know, there's sustainability, there's red list, there's ballpark costs, right? Like, that's important to me as an architect to just understand that. And there's so many companies out there unwilling to go down those roads because they don't see that immediate, or they don't see that the timeline of the ROI, as you say. And I understand why it's hard, but at the same time, you can't not do it in today's world.
It's really, to me, the only worthwhile marketing you can do if you're building product manufacturer. Like, that is really your job, is to make your brand the easiest brand to work with for an architect. Like, that is going to be what is going to actually be able to differentiate you.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think a big part of it, especially like think we're all seeing the kind of shifting demographics of the kind of architecture field, a lot more, millennial and younger.
Yep.
And also, like, from my understanding, the job is just, it's a busy job. You're doing a lot of things. So, like, you don't want to have to stop and pick up the phone to get, basic information. So as much of that information that can be on your website, as much of it that can be easily downloaded without gating and waiting and all of that, and even things like pricing information, like you might not need to put the exact price of something on there.
I need to know like
pricing
plus or
guidance.
minus 40%.
Exactly.
I'd be okay with that because if I can't afford it, it's not worth me spending the time to figure it out. But if you're unwilling to tell me, then I'm absolutely not going to go down that road.
And it can go on the opposite side too. If you're working on Beyonce's house, you don't want the cheapest option for your lighting or what have you.
I'm not asking you to compete on price. I just want to know if we're in the ballpark.
Exactly.
Because we have to balance as the design professional all of the things. And so there's site considerations, there's environmental, there's code, there's accessibility, there's all of these pieces, and that's the puzzle that we're dealing with.
And all of the manufacturers have all of that information, and there's no reason that it shouldn't be the easiest thing for an architect to get from the manufacturer without needing to talk to anybody.
Let's take a short break from the interview to tell you about what we're creating for the building industry at Tect. And that is something we call the shortest path from keywords to contact. Why? Because architects are either specifying the same products over and over again on projects or spending countless hours searching what I call the black hole of Google because it wasn't made for us, the building industry. And if you're thinking, this is probably just some other product directory, it's not. This is a platform where people find people. Tect provides design professionals with direct access to building product experts, the people behind the products. It's where they can get the help they need from real people with real answers on their terms. Architects like me want an easier way to find expert help, save time, and ultimately get design intent realized without getting on mailing lists and getting inundated with cold calls. If you like what we're doing here on the Peopleverse podcast, I know that you'll find value on Tect as well. I believe in it so much that I left working at a firm to help the entire profession here. So do me a favor and go to tect.com to learn more and add your name to the list to join our upcoming launch by clicking one of the orange buttons on the page. Again, that's tect.com and just look for an orange button to join the launch. We're building the platform where people come first. Thank you for listening. Now let's get back to the interview.
So what we're doing at Tect is we're putting the control in the design professional's hands to talk to an expert when they need it. And so I think all of the marketing work that you're talking about is important because when I have a need, as an architect, I'm going to find an expert who's geographically located. Location matters, right? Where my project is. If it's on the East Coast versus the West Coast, those are, I need to talk to two different people. It's not this, even if the product's footprint covers the whole United States, I still need to talk to an implementation expert, right? So there's that part of it. But then there's just my projects, my products, my timing. And like you said, like I don't have time to field 300 phone calls because that's how many products are in this project. I just don't. And so if you put it down to me to come to you as a building product manufacturer, you're way better at fielding what I need when I need it than spending all this time out there hoping. Right.
And it's exactly that, because like, the relationship and kind of expertise that the manufacturers have is extremely valuable to the architect when they need it.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that is dependent on if they need it or not is, does this product fit what I'm doing at all? And then once you know this product fits, so like one of our clients is a shower manufacturer and they work a lot in the accessibility space, so the code compliance side of that is extremely important. And they're very much experts on the code compliance.
They'll know way more more about that than I ever will.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah,
So that's extremely valuable information,
Right.
but you need to know, will this fit for my project at all before I want to talk to somebody to get that expertise?
And the rub there is with those sign-up forms on the websites, right? Like, I don't want to give up my private information just to find out if this is even a possibility.
Yeah, and I don't want to wait 48 hours for somebody to get back to me.
And those two things combined are like poison.
Yeah.
And so the AIA's research shows that 2 out of 3 architects will just click away on something else if they're hit with that. So I'm wondering how the reception of that information is for you guys, what you're hearing out there in the industry.
Yeah, because it's a very hard movement to make, because that's, for me, I'm very big on trying to move the industry away from even like the concept of leads. But right now, that's what they see as being a lead.
Right.
It's not a lead at all.
No.
Like, that's not, there's no sales intent there.
Right.
But if that's the only way that you've set up your marketing department, and like what you see as success is, you know, how many lead captures we get on the forums,
Right.
then it's very hard to convince yourself to move away from that.
But what is the value of a relationship?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Those are two different conversations. And I think that's the thing that it's hard to put a number to.
Yep.
But you actually could, right?
Yeah.
If you do have a relationship with somebody and your product is successfully specified and implemented on a project, there's your number.
Yeah.
That's how much that relationship was worth. And if you're the go-to expert for that individual or for lots of individuals, like that's what we're doing in, you know, like, yes, I'm giving you access to expertise as an architect, but as an expert, I'm giving you access to lots of design professionals.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to fill your pipeline, I hate to say it like that, with incoming that they're coming to you. You're not having to spend all the money going after them. Like, you still need to do marketing. You still need to have brand awareness.
Yeah, because they need to want to come to you in the first place.
They need to know you exist.
Yeah.
Right? But we do enable a shortcut to that, because even if somebody doesn't know you exist, you're still going to show up as an option based on the region that you service, because there's also a lot of waste for these manufacturers who are helping people in the wrong regions. And it'll never work. Like, I'm never going to ship concrete block from northern Nevada to New Jersey. We're never, right? So you need to be talking to somebody else. And that's great for everybody. Because you're saving everybody time when you do that, right? You're saving the design professional because they need to talk to the right person, and then we don't have to spend all of our time fielding stuff that doesn't make sense for us.
Yeah, and it's exactly those types of things that if marketing departments started to measure, and, like, you know, it doesn't need to have a direct monetary ROI on it, but just like, you know, these are the types of things that we know are useful, that we know are valuable in the sales process, and we're going to start trying to drive those things rather than focusing on lead capture forms on our website.
So how receptive have they been to that? And like, because that behavioral change, we feel, is the hardest change, but that is the thing that is actually required. So what's the reception to those messages been like?
It's not a easy sales pitch to make. Like, you have to really start from kind of foundations of what is this marketing department here to do. So you really need, so that's a lot of what we do, is starting on kind of the strategy side of, like, what does this marketing department exist for? Like, how do you measure success? All of that. So we really focus on the clients that are kind of willing to make that jump to, hey, we really want to be a successful marketing department, and we want to look at this
or build a successful marketing department. Like, engage with you early to say, like, here's how you build a successful marketing department in today's world, to respond to all of these outside factors that by understanding the audience of the design professional, you get to provide that insight to them and help them build the right team.
That's a lot of what we do, as well as on the research side. So we do our own research, but we also do research for clients to understand, you know, because every brand is unique, every product is unique. So, like, what's the place that exists currently in an architect's mind, and how do they look at it? Like, you know, how do they look at your competitors? All of those pieces. And understanding and talking to the audience is one of the most important things that you can really be doing as a marketing department.
One of the cool things about all of these building product manufacturers is, man, they are in it, right? It's taken a lot of capital, a lot of
most of them have existed for 50 plus years
to even be at the table. So the products are fantastic, right? And so, like, if there are competitors, and they know who they are. As a design professional, like if I'm working on a public project, I need to list 3.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them shy away from those kinds of projects because we want to be listed as we want to be the specified brand in that space. And I had a great interview yesterday with an architect who's been on the specifications, the technical side of things for a long time, and his message to those manufacturers is like, you just need to be, success is being in the spec, because then you can compete on your actual products, and everybody knows that you make great products. So compete on that level, because that's what you are built to do. Like that's what your company is there for.
And you'll be in that spec, probably every spec for that comes off for the rest of history.
And the only way to do that is to be known. And so getting known is part of the battle for sure, and then creating these relationships. And that sets you up for that success.
And I think that that's a big part of where the sales side comes in is, when you're being spec'd against 3 others, and like, a lot of these are like, because there's a lot of unique products, but there's also like, commodity products. And there's other things that come to that of how fast the ship times are, the
Logistics,
expertise, the logistics, all of that. And that's such an important part of the brand of that product as well. But getting on the spec is still important, but then that sales side of it can be what keeps you on the spec and that relationship piece.
And by having the relationship and having me being able to call upon an expert, and maybe not even knowing the right questions to ask, but for them to be able to provide that insight to me to make sure my project is successful and my client is happy, is gold. Like that's an amazing place to be for a brand.
And I think that we're really aligned with kind of what Tect's trying to do, and that, like, I'd much rather every salesperson be having conversations around what really makes a product unique and what's really about your project as an architect, instead of, here's the very basics of it, here's the pricing, and then, get off the phone and really feel like you're trying to sell.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and it's been great meeting you.
Great to meet you.
I feel like we're kindred spirits here and in parallel tracks, so this is fantastic.
It's fantastic to meet you. Thanks for your time.
Hey, before you go, can you do one thing for me? Hit the like button. It really does help us in the YouTube universe. Watching all the way to the end is probably even more helpful, so thank you for that too. It all adds up and helps more people find the show. These are great ways for you to help spread the word and contribute to the Peopleverse. If you want to help the channel even more, please subscribe and use that red button right down there and turn on the notification bell so that you'll know exactly when the next episode comes out. It's completely free to do so. And finally, do you have something to add to this conversation? If you do, leave a comment. I read all of them. I can't wait to share the next conversation with you. So until then, see you soon.